Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
This is Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, episode number 269. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, Bruce Hutchin, and we're heading to Joe Pacconi's place down there in Southern Ohio. Actually, Joe runs Pacconi's Trophy Whitetails of Southern Ohio, and he hunts and targets Pope and Young bucks. So if you ever hunt with Joe, look at his website, you're going to see Pope and Young quality deer, and that's what he targets. Every once in a while, they'll see Mr. Wonderful, Boone and Crockett class deer. Hey, listeners, don't forget to text 33444 Food Plot for your free Food Plot ebook. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. Hey, folks, we're heading out to Ohio, and we're going to connect with Pacconi's Trophy Whitetails of Southern Ohio. Hey, Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bruce. How are you today?
Well, it's my birthday, and I'm officially an old guy. People don't believe this, but I don't sound like it, but I'm 70 years old today, so I'm having one fine day, and thank you for celebrating my day with me.
Yeah, no problem. It's a pleasure to be on the show and to talk about deer hunting with you.
Well, it's always a pleasure, and I've been blessed to have folks guests on from all over North America. And just today, as a birthday present, we went over 75,000 downloads since August 31st, 2015. So that's a pretty good birthday. But enough about me, and let's talk about...
well, hey, there's one way to look at it, Bruce. That's better than being put on a cholesterol pill or blood thinners.
You got that right. Say, let's start right out and tell us something about your hunting tradition and how you've really delved in hard for hunting mature bucks. So how do you get started in that?
Well, it all started when I was a kid in Pennsylvania. My entire family were hunters in PA. My dad, my grandfathers. And in Pennsylvania, hunting deer, we even have the first day of deer season off of school. So it's a pretty big thing there. And it started there, with me always seeing deer because we lived in an area where deer were heavily populated and some decent bucks, nothing like we hunt in Ohio now, but that's where it all started for me. And I just developed a love for always seeing whitetail deer in the wild and being out in the woods with my family members, my grandfather, my dad, my uncles, and all the traditions that we developed, going to the store at lunchtime for a pie when they're doing deer drives and things like that are just memories that'll be with me forever, hunting deer with my family. And it's just continued on into where now that I'm an outfitter.
Now, what are some of the early lessons that you learned that you're passing along to your kids, your family members, or the people your guests at your outfit there?
Well, normally, we first of all we go through the basics. How to set a stand, how to scout for the deer, looking for rubs, scrapes, trying to figure out if we're going to hunt on food plots early season, and then late season we hunt where the does are, obviously when they're rutting. And then in January when it gets cold and the bucks are run down looking for food, we try to hunt on the food sources and bring them in whenever they're run down and they let their guard down a little bit. But that's the kind of stuff we teach everybody, even my kids, why we hunt a specific area at certain times of year as opposed to later in the year where we might be in a different spot. And the little clues that bucks leave in the woods to where we can maybe pinpoint and get a line on them to set a stand.
So you learned that from your uncles and early days in PA, or is that something that you just matured into yourself? I guess what I'm looking for is, what are some of the lessons early on?
They weren't quite as serious as that, because they were more gun hunters in PA. But that's where it all started for me, the love of the outdoors with those guys. And it developed for me to, into more trophy deer hunting instead of just getting a buck. It developed into learning how to kill these book deer. And that's basically where it's gotten to for me right now.
Well, let's talk about, I think it's interesting. You talk about book deer, and I like to talk about mature deer. In your mind, let's take a look at both things. I think what you're saying, when you look at a book deer, whitetail, that's 180, right?
We figure Pope and Young, 125 and up. That's what we consider a book deer. Because 90% of our hunters that come hunt are archery hunters.
Okay.
So, and 90% of them have never taken a Pope and Young deer in their lifetime. So it's a great opportunity coming to Ohio for us to provide them a chance to take an animal that they've been waiting for all their life.
Well, yeah, because in my hunting, a lot of people, post, large deer, big deer. And I know the farm that we hunt, we took the first 180 deer the first weekend of the archery season this year. And a young man took it, one of the, the cousins on the farm for the people who own it. And I think about that, and I think he was 5.5 years old, but I think over the years how many Pope and Young deer we haven't taken, on that same farm. And it's a farm I've been hunting for 50 years, and they kind of engrafted me into the family so I could hunt it. But having said that, mature deer, now a Pope and Young buck is what, 3.5 years old at best case, or is it sometimes younger?
Yes, usually 3.5. Usually his second rack, if he has good genetics, he'll be in the 125 range. Normally a deer that's a basket rack 8-point with a 10 to 15-inch spread his first year, he'll usually develop into something that's over 125 his second set of antlers.
So how do you know, a 125 deer's got a solid, spread? How do you tell your guests when they come, hey, we're really looking for mature deer, 3.5 years old, 125 or better? How do you help them realize that deer? Because sometimes in Ohio you get big body deer, don't you?
Well, what helps, Bruce, is that I'm a trail camera fanatic, and I have trail cameras set all over our properties, which gives me thousands of pictures to sit down with clients on a computer screen and show them exactly the type of rack that we're looking to take on a deer.
So when you're looking, say, I'm looking at your bio, and there's a pretty nice buck there. He's got nice brow tines. His G2s, G3s are long. It looks like he's got pretty good mass, but it looks like it's a young deer. Do you remember that photo you sent me?
We have several deer like that, Bruce, and the reason is we have unbelievable genetics in that area, and younger deer develop these giant racks on them at our place. And if that deer can get another 2 or 3 years on him, you can imagine what he'd look like. He'd easily be over 160 in the Boone and Crockett range.
Oh, yeah, because he looks 3.5 years old. I'm even saying he might even be 2.5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Just from the size of his head, his neck, there's no sag in his belly. His legs are, make his body look small. Again, the smaller neck, so it's not the running season. But, I look at that and I say, wow, that's a great rack for a young deer. So do you do quality deer management, or how do the genes get there?
It's just a natural gene pool in that area. That area just has a lot of mass on the horns, great tine height, good spread. We're hunting very rural area in southern Ohio with lots of big wooded areas, and the deer can get the age on them, and they already have the genetics, and we try to pound the food into where they're at, and that's what's given us such great racks on our bucks in that area.
Now, can you bait or supplement feed, or is it all food plot, or how do you keep the deer around? They like food cover and the water. So how do you keep the bucks on your properties?
Well, in the private properties in Ohio, you are allowed to bait, which we use shelled corn and apples a lot. And we do have food plots. I like to use red and white ladino clover and turnips and, buck forage oats. But usually where we are, it's very rural, very wooded. So we don't have the agricultural competition for us to bait the deer. So whenever we put the shelled corn and apples and our mineral blocks out for the deer, they really tend to come to them because we're not competing with a 1,000-acre cornfield beside the wood plot. We're kind of the only game in town for them to come eat.
Well, that helps a lot. I mean,
yes, yes, it does.
Where I hunt in Iowa and Wisconsin and other states, I am competing against, huge, cornfields, not small ones. I mean, we're talking 100-acre cornfields, 50-acre cornfields, or larger. And the deer can slip in there, and we've, in the archery season, we know they're in there. We can't get them out. And gun season, if we do a drive, we'll pop them out of there. But if the corn's still standing,
right. And in archery season on that big field, he may come out in one spot one night, and then you go hunt that spot where you've seen him. But then the field's so vast, he may come out 300 yards below that or above that the next night. So it kind of helps us pinpoint the deer and let us set our stands and blinds to where the deer are congregating a lot.
Now, you mentioned you have thousands of trail cameras. Let's talk about your trail camera process. When you set them up, when you check them, do you check them during the season? Not? Do you ever shut them off? Let's have that discussion right now.
I like to put the trail cameras out around the first week of July when the bucks are almost fully developed, but I start feeding the deer in June. And whenever I feed the deer, I do not use feeders. What we found is these bigger bucks do not like to seem to come into a feeder. It seems too unnatural for them. So one of the biggest keys for me is dropping the shelled corn on the ground, which takes a lot of work and time, but I'm willing to put that effort out every single week for my clients. Every 7 days, I go down in 18 different spots. It takes me 2 full days to drop 200 pounds of corn at every one of my camera sets. And
200 pounds?
Yes, I usually put 200 pound out that last 7 days, and it's usually pretty much gone after the 7 days.
Now, do you have an ATV or Gator? How do you get that out
Yes,
there?
I use an ATV. I put 100 pound on each side of her and unload it off the cart and head in, and I dump it right on the ground, and that's where we have our camera sets. And if you start baiting early like that, as opposed to a guy that tries to start baiting in September and hunting the first week of October, we're putting the corn out in June, getting these groups of does coming into our food. And then by the time hunting season comes, it's a natural thing for them to always come to that area. And it really helps us harvest some nice bucks, because when you have does, you have bucks. So we're drawing 10, 15 does into where we're baiting, and then the bucks come into them areas because they know that that's where that food always is, and the does are hanging out.
Wow. Now, how do you set your tree stand? So does the bait pile decide where you're going to set your tree stand, or are you in natural crossing, pinch points, funnels, and then you start baiting?
We usually, in the area we hunt, like to bait high, like on a ridge top or a flat. That way the wind, we can decide whether to hunt that stand or not. We can tell which direction it's going to blow. But it's a little different than other areas. There is no specific bedding area there because the woods are so big. The deer can come from anywhere. We've literally tracked deer in the wintertime down there, and they just go till they're tired, and you'll see their beds in the snow. It's not like a lot of places in the country where, oh, there's the thick spot, there's the crab apples, there's the switchgrass or the pasture field that's growed up. That's the bedding area. It's a little bit different than that. So it all plays a role in where we set the stands and blinds, but usually we try to look at the wind mostly and set the stands so that they're upwind of the way the deer would come in.
Now, do you use ground blinds? You just mentioned blinds. Do you use ground blinds?
Yes, we use ground blinds. We have a lot of areas that are pasture field, and the ground blinds work well there. And we have growed up pasture field where we've mowed and put food plots in the middle of these growed up areas. And the grass around the mowed area is like 5 feet high. So it looks like something out of like Wyoming or Nebraska is what I'm trying to say. Right at dark, it just comes alive. These bucks will pop up out of this high grass where they're bedded. People will see these huge rack bucks, and then they'll just roll right into one of our clover plots or where we have the corn laid out and get an opportunity to harvest one.
So they hang out in, I'll say, CRP type of grounds. Everybody can relate to that. So there is
right.
Heavy cover, and then when the dinner bell goes off, they get up and start moving to where your stands are. Is that pretty much it?
Right, and then in the rut, they like to be in that grass, especially on that CRP, as you're saying. On windy days, it's really good because the bucks don't like to be in the big timber where the limbs on the trees and stuff are rattling around and they can't hear their predators. They like to be out where they can see the does, and they will literally just run back and forth in these growed up areas, chasing these does right in front of our hunters. It's an awesome sight to see.
Chasing is, and I've been fortunate enough to see it a couple of times, and I had one of my buddies with me one time, and I saw him go, and they're just going round and round in this little woodlot. It wasn't 10 acres, off one of the fields, and I go, they're chasing. He said, what are you talking about? I said, you never seen this? He goes, no. I said, there's 2 or 3 bucks, and there's one large buck and 2 small bucks, and there's one doe, and there's her tongue's hanging out. I said, just watch that food lot, and they'll pop in, and they did, and then they came out in the field, rested, and then went back in, chasing. When the largest one came up, boom, we shot him.
Uh-huh.
Oh, well.
So he had an experience.
Oh, yeah. It was just, it's amazing when you see them doing it, because people, if they've never seen or experienced it, sometimes you see a buck trailing when his nose down and he's going, but when they get in chasing, there's competition. It's a riot. It's just absolutely a riot.
We have a great buck-doe ratio down there. It's probably only 3 does to 1 buck. I have seen 4 to 7 Pope and Young sized bucks chasing 1 doe in heat on our properties before.
Wow.
So that just makes the hunting so good in the rut, because if you see a doe coming, you better get ready, because it's not like PA or West Virginia or New Jersey where you got 30 doe and 3 buck. They want that doe that's in heat. And when she comes in heat, all the big bucks in that area are going to be coming in competing for her.
Well, that's neat. Hey, Joe, right now, let's take a break. And if somebody wants to get hold of you after listening to the show, how's the best way to do that?
Oh, that's fine. If you just want to take a break. How would they do that?
Yeah, just tell me how they would get in touch with you, to find out more about what you're going on, if they want to follow you on social media. So just share with us, how people can find you.
Sure. We're on Facebook. I like to use Facebook because it's not expensive. Under Pacconi's Trophy Whitetails of Southern Ohio. You can search us there. And I also use Joseph Pacconi, Washington, PA, because that's where I live in the summer. And they can follow the entire season with us on those Facebook pages. From June all the way through February, I update the pages with trail cam pictures, hunter kills, hunter reviews and reports of their experience with us. We also have a website, Pacconi's Trophy Whitetails of Southern Ohio, under Hunting Top 10 Outfitters. And if someone would just Google that, it'll come right up in front of you, and you'll see several other links and stuff that we use to put our pictures and reviews on.
Okay, so that was Hunting Top 10 Outfitters, so they Google that, and then you'll pop up.
Yep, Pacconi's Trophy Whitetails of Southern Ohio under Hunting Top 10 Outfitters. If you Google that, you will see all of our information. My Facebook page will even come up too.
Excellent. Well, thanks for sharing that. Hey, in the warm-up, you mentioned how you've had a number of ladies come down to your farms and hunt. So let's talk about women in the outdoors. That's a fast-growing segment in the outdoor industry right now. So let's tell some of the ladies you have come down, what type of hunters there are, how you help them become better hunters, that type of questions.
Okay. Yes, I've had the fortunate experience to hunt with Brittany Glaze from Destination Whitetail. She's the host of Destination Whitetail. I had a great time hunting with her. We made a show last year on archery hunt in September at my place. And I also got to hunt with Nicole McLean from NBC. And she came down for a couple-day archery hunt last year also. And we had great hunts. They both seen shooter bucks. We didn't get a chance to harvest them, but they seen bucks every day we were there. And I'll tell you what, I'd put any of those girls up against any guy in the country. They stuck it out. They hunted in the cold weather. It was raining, and Brittany sat pretty much all day in the rain. Anybody that knocks girls for hunting, I didn't see it, because these ladies could hunt with any man in the country and give them a game.
And that's great. And why do you think women are growing so fast in the outdoor sports?
Well, yeah, when I was a kid, I don't think it was socially the thing to do for a woman to hunt, maybe 20 years ago. But, thank goodness things have developed and progressed to where it's more acceptable for women to hunt. And, dads are taking their girls out whenever they're 6, 7 years old and introduce them to the woods and hunting. And it's just a great thing. The girls seem to be actually enjoying their experience and carrying on and developing family memories and experiences that'll last them a lifetime with their dad.
Yeah, it's just unique. And I had a couple of ladies that have shared with me how once they get out into the woods and everything, it becomes empowering, especially after they get their first harvest, their first kill, and all of a sudden they realize that they can be a provider. They can go out and bring some meat home to the family. And it's very interesting. And I always ask my guests, I said, what are you doing to help, promote women in the field? And it's interesting, some of the answers we get. But in your case, I know you're supporting them. And tell us about the TV show that's going to be on today, folks. It's October 5th, and you'll probably hear this next week. But anyway, there's going to be a show tonight. So tell us about that, Joe.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I made a show on Destination Whitetail with Brittany Glaze. last September in archery season, and it will air October 5th at 8:30 Eastern Time on the Sportsman's Channel. And I think it's going to be on Rack's Giving also later in the year on the Sportsman's Channel. And it's just a great hunt. My buddy's on there with me. His name's Mike Rex. He's a deer guru from Athens, Ohio. He shot a buck that was 218 inches down there in 2005. It was on the cover of North American Whitetail. There's a short interview with him, and he has his trophy room. And it's just an impressive sight to see his trophy room. And it gives people across the country an idea of the genetics in that area, because between him and his sons, I believe there's over 30 trophy bucks in one room that all are over Pope and Young, 125 or up. And there's a couple Boone and Crockett bucks there. Just a lifetime of hunting for that family. And it gives everyone a chance to see that and get information of the areas that we're hunting at Pacconi's Trophy Whitetails.
Wow. You know, I know a couple of guys that have done real well, really good DIY hunters. And to get a collection over the years, I know, you know, I've got a couple of what I call mature bucks on the wall. A lot of the deer I never mounted. We ate them. And that was it. You know, that was just it. And I've got a couple of representative trophies, and that's what I've kept throughout my hunting career. But it's amazing when you see just stacks and stacks of just horns. Forget, you know, shoulder mounts. In Buffalo County, one of my friends, you know, he's got a room similar to what you're talking about. It's just, you know, years. You know, you're spanning decades of successful archery hunting, and you know that's pretty neat.
I'll never forget watching a hunting show with Stan Potts on it about 3 years ago, right before I started my outfitter business. And he said, the number one thing, ladies and gentlemen, is you gotta hunt where these deer are. You gotta hunt the areas that produce these trophy deer. You can't expect to hunt some area that produces a Pope and Young once every 7 years and think that you're going to get on the board every year with them. You got to get yourself in these areas that they harvest these mature whitetails. And I'll never forget that. And it was one of the things that really got me searching around for an area to open my outfitter business.
I'm going to ask you a question now. You know, why are you in the outfitting business? We know you like to hunt deer. We know there's probably some money into it. But, you know, why are you into that business? Because it's not an easy business.
Number one, I've killed enough big deer and deer in my lifetime that the selfishness of me trying to harvest the deer over someone else is gone. So I'm into that stage to where I like to take someone else out and basically try to make a dream come true for them. And it's a beautiful thing, because last week I had a guy from Michigan come down, and we were on our way to a hunting spot in the morning, and he was telling me how he had some hard luck this year, and his buddy decided to take his life about 2 months before that. And, and he was pretty depressed about it and everything. And I was just thinking, boy, how nice it would be if something really good would happen to him, if he would have a good encounter here with us. And that morning, he didn't see anything. So in the evening, I put him in this spot where we were getting some great pictures of a beautiful sticker time buck that had 2 back scratchers off the main beams. He's about 150. And, you know, me as an outfitter, I know the area they're in. I know the routine they have, but there's still no guarantee that this deer is going to come out and go right to the hunter. But it was God's will that night. I put him in that spot. Stickers come out, walk the whole length of the field, and he said his heart was absolutely pounding coming toward him. And he said he stood pretty as a picture at broadside at about 40 yards, and he got a chance to harvest them. And he said when that deer ran 30 feet, and its horns just hit the ground and dirt flew everywhere. He said he just looked at the heavens, and all he could think about was his buddy. And he's telling me this story about how it emotionally connected him with his buddy, you know, and the deer he harvested with me. So, I mean, how can you get a better experience than that? I mean, if I would have shot it, I never would have felt as good as him shooting it, because it was something good that happened in his life this year. And he's going to take that with him back to Michigan and remember that forever. And that's what I love about my job, and that's why I do it.
Wow. There's nothing to say about why we hunt, and there's just a lot of situations, especially working with the military and some of the people that I, have as guests. And, I've talked to a lot of soldiers that have had situations, and they said, when they're in the woods and it's the quietness and they're anticipating the hunt, all those things, it brings them peace.
Right. Yes, it does. There's nothing better than sitting in the woods, whether it's hot, cold, whatever the weather conditions, like everyone says, it's better than any good day of work. So.
You got that right. You got that right. That's for sure. Well, it's unbelievable, Joe, and we're going to have you on the show again, because we're getting up to the soft start of the show. So could you take a minute or two and give shout outs to whoever you want to, and then we'll wrap the show.
I just want to thank my dad and my grandfathers for getting me into hunting when I was a kid, and all my uncles and family back in Indiana, PA. And then I just want to thank everybody for supporting me, as I followed my dream into where I can basically make a living at it. And I want to thank Mike Rex down in Athens. He's been great. He's a good friend of mine, and helping me get some properties, which without good properties in great areas, you have nothing. So I just want to thank all the property owners in Athens for working with me and getting things tied down, believing in me, believing in the type of clients that I'll bring onto their properties and trusting me. And everybody that's just following us right now on Facebook and stuff. The trail cam pictures has become a big success on Facebook every week, and I just want to let everyone know that I'm going to keep working hard and try to get you some nice pictures there every week to look at, and hopefully we get guys excited and get them down here to do some hunting with us.
Well, folks, it's a pleasure to touch all bases in North America, and we had a great visit with Joe Pacconi today from Pacconi's Trophy Whitetails of Sudden, Ohio. So, Joe, on behalf of the thousands of listeners throughout North America, thank you for being a guest on Whitetail Rendezvous.
Thank you, Bruce. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Now, folks, make sure you listen to the next episode. AJ Gall, community director of Legendary Whitetails, is going to talk to us about his rut forecast for 2016. It's going to break it down into 4 different segments or targets or indicators, as I like to say, of the rut. So stay tuned. It's going to be an awesome show. You're going to tell your friends and neighbors all about it.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.